Former NBA player Delonte West is back in the news, and once again, it's some tough news. Over the last few years, we've seen images and videos and heard stories about Delonte West's struggles with mental health and drug addiction. We've seen him on the street, we've seen him be arrested, we've seen him struggling with some sort of mental health breakdown, and we've heard stories from his family and friends who have corroborated all of this. Just recently, Mark Cuban made the headlines with Delonte West because Mark Cuban was filmed trying to pick Delonte West up to get him help, to get him support, and ultimately to invest in drug rehab for him. First thing I want to say is thank you, Mark Cuban. One, Mark Cuban didn't bring a camera crew. He didn't try to make this a big spectacle. What he tried to do was offer love and support and help for somebody who played for him. But honestly, just because it was the right thing to do. And that's what we should be doing. At a moment where we're talking about Black Lives Matter, mental health has to be right at the center of the conversation. But the story of Delonte West is a story of a bigger crisis and a bigger challenge that we have to confront. First, the NBA has to deal with this. The NBA in last year has unveiled a mental health and wellness program, but it's still far too little and it's far too late. Numerous players have struggled with depression and other forms of mental illness. People have talked about anxiety. People like Royce White, who weren't able to travel, were mocked and pushed out of the league rather than given the type of support that they need. And so yes, I'm happy that the NBA is making the steps that it's making, but they still have a long way to go to address mental illness as a real serious problem and not an outlier in the NBA. The other thing, though, is the broader crisis of mental health that we have to confront as a community and as a nation. When the Delonte West story first started leaking, I remember seeing photographs and tweets and blogs and memes that were making fun of him a lot. The idea that we're mocking someone for a mental health breakdown is deeply troublesome and deeply reflective of where we are as a nation with regard to mental health. Too often we still see mental illness, we still see mental health supports and resources going to a therapist as a sign of weakness. For some people, we still see it as a crisis of faith, that if we loved and trusted God more, we'd be okay. All of this is part of a culture that doesn't take mental health seriously. Now, fortunately, in recent years, I've seen a lot of love for Delonte West. I've seen a lot of people calling to help him. I've seen individual players like Jameer Nelson and LeBron James and others say that they're going to help and invest whatever money it takes to give Delonte the support that he needs. That's beautiful and that's wonderful. But we need systems and structures in place so that we don't need individual philanthropy to save someone's life. I shouldn't be able to be in the NBA and fall into a vulnerable place and not have the kind of support and love structurally that I need to be okay. And I shouldn't be a non-NBA player. I shouldn't be a school teacher or a janitor and not be able to get the mental health supports that I need. In the same way that you would treat a broken leg or a broken arm with a doctor, we have to treat any kind of mental health needs with the same type of urgency and the same type of commitment to medical intervention. So everybody out there, we have to invest in this. We have to reimagine this. As we enter election season, we have to make sure that the politicians, not just the president, but every level of politician is talking about mental health and how they're going to invest in mental health resources. We live in a country that since the late 70s, early 80s, we have stripped away federal funding for mental health resources. We've taken away community centers. We've shut down mental institutions. We have essentially criminalized mental illness by taking all the people who were mentally ill, or many people who were mentally ill, and letting them fall to the street, and then criminalizing homelessness and drug addiction and all these other social crimes that people often engage in when they're on the street. We have to change the narrative. We have to change the policy. We have to invest in these folk and love these folk. And when I say these folk, I ain't just talking about some outlier, somebody in the news. I'm talking about all of us. I'm talking about me. I struggle with mental illness. My friends struggle with mental illness. It's hard to be in this country and not struggle with mental illness. We all need a therapist. We all need help. We all need resources. We want to normalize a culture of investment, of love, of protection, of funding for everybody dealing with mental illness.